He starred in Iron Man, ruled TV with Empire, and then built his own science lab. Terrence Howard isn't just an actor. He's a musical composer, a theoretical physicist, and a man with patents for machines that don't even exist yet. So how did he go from red carpets to rewriting the rules of reality? The actor, the genius, the mystery, Terrence's journey to stardom. Terrence Howard is one of those actors you can't easily box into a type. He's intense, brilliant, unpredictable, and full of contradictions, which might explain why his rise to fame feels more like a character study than a typical Hollywood success story. But long before the awards, the TV stardom, or the scientific theories, he was just a kid growing up in the rougher parts of Chicago, trying to survive a life that wasn't exactly built on comfort. Born on March 11, 1969, Terrence had a turbulent childhood. His father, Tyrone Howard, was involved in a publicized incident known as the Santa Line slaying when Terrence was just 2 years old. The aftermath of that moment, combined with a complicated family dynamic, meant that stability wasn't something Terrence knew much about. After years of chaos and instability, he ended up being raised by his great-grandmother, who became one of the most grounding figures in his life. She was the one who gave him structure, discipline, and a strange but valuable mix of old-school wisdom and unconditional support. Interestingly, Terrence wasn't just a kid who liked movies. He was fascinated by science. Even as a teenager, he was deep into chemistry and engineering. He said before that he was working on mathematical equations in his early 20s that most people wouldn't even attempt. That obsession with how things work would follow him well into adulthood, but acting called to him just as loudly. His first major break came with Mr. Holland's Opus in 1995. He didn't have the lead, but his performance stood out. That same year, he took on a role in Dead Presidents, a gritty Vietnam-era crime drama that showed he could bring raw energy to every scene he touched. And it wasn't long before roles in movies like The Best Man proved that he had serious range. The turning point, though, was Hustle and Flow in 2005. Playing DJ, a Memphis pimp with dreams of becoming a rapper, Terrence gave a performance so layered and powerful that it earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. That greatness translated into big money roles. When Marvel launched Iron Man in 2008, Terrence Howard was the studio's highest-paid actor in the film. Yes, even more than Robert Downey Jr. at the time. Playing James Rhodey Rhodes, he brought seriousness to a superhero universe that was just beginning to take shape. Though he didn't return for the sequels, his impact on that first film helped shape what Marvel became. Then came Empire. From 2015 to 2020, Terrence played Lucius Lyon, a role that seemed to be written just for him. The show was a huge hit, and at its peak, Terrence was earning hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode. Through every role, Terrence has remained a mystery. He's brilliant, stubborn, deeply philosophical, and one of the most complex figures in Hollywood. But while his characters were complicated, Terrence's real-life relationships and family might be even more complex. A complicated heart, Terrence's partner, marriages, and 5 children. He has been married multiple times, gone through some very public breakups, and still somehow found his way back to love, twice with the same woman. The man is nothing if not full of contradictions, but beneath it all, you can tell he values family deeply. Terrence's current partner, and the woman he married twice, is Miranda Pak. She's a former model and restaurateur, and the two first tied the knot in 2013. At the time, the relationship flew under the radar, but it didn't stay private for long. The couple had their first son, Kieran Love, in 2015. Then came Hero Howard, born in 2016. After a brief split, Terrence and Miranda reconnected and remarried in 2018. It's clear from the way he talks about her that he sees Miranda as his piece. In interviews, he's referred to her as his best friend and the person who brings balance to his sometimes chaotic world. But his family goes beyond just Miranda and their 2 boys. Terrence has 3 other children from previous relationships. His oldest daughter, Aubrey, has occasionally been seen at red carpet events and has spoken fondly about her father in past interviews. He also has another daughter and a son from his earlier marriages, though they tend to stay out of the spotlight. What's consistent across all his relationships with his kids is a deep sense of protection. Terrence may be open about his romantic life, but when it comes to his children, he keeps things tight. Even when critics have tried to paint him as unstable or unpredictable, he stood firm in one message: his children are his center. Behind closed doors, Terrence is said to be a hands-on dad. He cooks, he gardens, and he spends real time with his kids. There are no nannies doing the heavy lifting. Those close to him have mentioned how seriously he takes fatherhood, especially after finding what he calls a second chance at love with Miranda. And when you're building a life like that, the kind of space you live in matters more than ever. Because when you've got 5 kids, a partner you call your soulmate, and a mind that never stops creating, your home can't just be big. It has to fit the rhythm of your life. The homes of Howard. Inside his real estate portfolio, one of Terrence Howard's most significant residences was a private estate in Lafayette Hill, Pennsylvania. Located just outside Philadelphia, the property offered him everything he wanted during the height of his Empire fame: privacy, natural surroundings, and space to work. The house itself was sophisticated, but not showy. It was the kind of place where you could hear yourself think. He eventually sold it in 2021, but it played a key role in shaping how he lives today, quietly, intentionally, and out of the public eye. Before that, he split his time between Chicago and various parts of California. Chicago, of course, wasn't just where he grew up. It was where his sense of reality was rooted. He owned modest property in the area for years, visiting often between filming schedules. In California, he was always low-key. No Beverly Hills circus, no reality TV-type neighborhoods. Instead, Terrence preferred peaceful locations like Woodland Hills and Pasadena, places that gave him creative room without sacrificing comfort. But the most fascinating chapter in his real estate journey has unfolded in the Caribbean. By 2025, Terrence was reportedly living most of the year in the Dominican Republic. He didn't buy into a gated resort or some influencer-infested island villa. Instead, he acquired raw land and began building an eco-estate designed entirely around sustainability and harmony with nature. According to those close to him, the land spans several acres and includes structures powered entirely by solar energy, with rainwater harvesting and off-grid waste systems. In 2023, he publicly revealed his vision to construct fully self-sustaining homes that function more like living organisms than buildings. These weren't celebrity vanity projects. He worked with engineers and architects to create what he calls harmonic dwellings, places designed according to mathematical principles he claims align with natural energy flow. It might sound eccentric, but for Terrence, this has become more than a hobby. His interest in architecture is as deep as his love for acting. He's fascinated by geometry, by structural integrity, by how energy moves through a space. When he talks about real estate, it's never about price per square foot. It's about spiritual alignment. He has said in interviews that a home should speak back to you. That's why he's focused on shapes, soundproofing, lighting angles, even the air circulation. Every detail matters to him. Terrence has also reportedly invested in land throughout other parts of the Caribbean and Central America. Friends say he prefers untouched locations, hillsides, riverside lots, clifftop stretches, where he can shape something from the ground up. No flipping, no resale value calculations, just vision, land, and long-term design. Even his past homes reflect that philosophy. You'll never see his properties featured in glossy magazine spreads or YouTube mansion tours. He doesn't film from inside them, host walkthroughs, or invite the press over. The people who've seen the inside of Terrence's homes usually have one thing in common. They're part of his inner circle. That privacy isn't just a lifestyle preference, it's a creative necessity. Every home he's built or bought serves a different phase in his life. And now, with a partner and 5 children, those homes are less about him and more about the world he's trying to create for his family. A place of calm, a place of learning, a place to grow without being watched. But tucked away inside these private estates is also a garage that tells you everything you need to know. The Terrence Garage, exotic cars with a scientist's taste. Terrence Howard might not be a car guy in the traditional sense, but step into his garage and you'll realize he's anything but ordinary. A Rolls-Royce Ghost leads Terrence Howard's car collection, and that alone tells you a lot about his taste. It's not the most aggressive or flashy Rolls-Royce model. It's the most composed. With a price tag of around $350,000, the Ghost is about ultra-luxury, smooth control, and interior silence. For a man who thrives on thought and design, it's a natural fit. He's been seen in the Ghost numerous times in Los Angeles, rarely drawing attention but always arriving in style. Right beside it, you'll likely find his Tesla Model S Plaid, a car that perfectly balances science and power. This thing can do 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds and has a minimalist dashboard that would make any tech lover smile. For Terrence, it's more than just a cool ride. It's a symbol of the clean energy movement he's so deeply into. He's mentioned before that electric energy is just one step toward a better global infrastructure, and owning a Tesla gives him a front-row seat to that transformation. He also owns a Mercedes Maybach S-Class. This $200,000 luxury sedan is famous for its buttery smooth ride and next-level comfort. It's a car designed to make you forget you're even moving. Think recliner-style back seats, noise-canceling insulation, and a cabin that practically hugs you. That quiet, meditative experience is exactly what a guy like Terrence would go for. Something built not for ego, but for peace. But what sets his garage apart isn't what's parked there. It's what he's trying to build next. In 2024, reports emerged that Terrence was working on a hydrogen-powered car prototype. Sources say he's investing both time and money into developing a propulsion system based on what he's described as mathematical purity. While that might sound abstract, those close to the project say it's very real, and it's deeply tied to his broader scientific theories on geometry, frequency, and energy flow. This isn't about launching a car company or building the next Tesla. It's about Terrence doing what he's always done, proving that there's more to him than people realize. His vehicle project is reportedly still in testing stages, but if it ever comes to life, it could be the most Terrence Howard thing ever. Every car Terrence owns serves a purpose. Each one mirrors how he moves through the world, quietly, efficiently, and always just a little ahead of the curved dot. But Terrence isn't just collecting rides. He's been building wealth in ways most actors never even touch. How he built his wealth: deals, paychecks, and inventions. Empire paid Terrence Howard more than $175,000 per episode during its peak, and that number didn't take long to stack up. Over the course of 6 seasons and nearly 100 episodes, he earned tens of millions just from that one show. Playing Lucius Lyon has become his most financially rewarding gig to date. And when you add in syndication, streaming residuals, and bonus deals from Fox and Hulu, the Empire checks didn't stop just because the cameras did. But his road to building wealth started long before he was ruling primetime TV. His role as James Rhodes in the original Iron Man back in 2008 came with a $4.5 million paycheck. While Terrence was famously replaced in the sequels, that initial payday was a game changer. It showed that he could command top dollar for big-budget roles. Then there are the royalties. He's never been in a massive franchise like Marvel or Fast and Furious long-term, but he's had steady earners. Hustle and Flow still generates revenue from licensing and streaming, especially since the film's music. It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp won an Oscar. Films like Crash, Four Brothers, and The Best Man are also still playing regularly on cable, meaning he gets royalty checks several times a year. It's not blockbuster money, but it's consistent. What makes Terrence different from most actors, though, is what he's doing outside of Hollywood. He's publicly said that acting isn't even his true passion anymore. Science is. Over the last decade, he's poured time and money into theoretical research and engineering projects under what he once called teleology. The term was controversial, mainly because it challenged conventional mathematics and physics, and included claims about gravity, frequency, and new ways to model the universe. The science world didn't exactly welcome it, but the paperwork behind it is very real. Terrence holds patents tied to his theories. He has filed applications with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on structures he claims demonstrate new laws of motion and energy. Whether or not they stand up to peer-reviewed science, they're officially registered and linked to his name. That means he's not just talking, he's investing, building models, filing intellectual property. For him, wealth isn't just about stacking movie paychecks. It's about creating systems, financial, intellectual, scientific, that keep producing. His acting career gave him the initial capital. His work in TV gave him longevity. But his personal vision, the one most people don't see, is where he's putting his biggest bets. And even if none of those patents ever go public, he's already done what few actors ever attempt. He built a second life based on his own beliefs. However, even with millions earned and such a sharp mind, Howard has managed to stay extremely humble. Low-key luxury, Terrence Howard's private lifestyle. These days, you won't see him partying at celebrity hotspots or popping up at award show after-parties. His version of luxury is a lot quieter, slower mornings, natural surroundings, and time with his kids. He's the definition of off the grid when it comes to Hollywood's social scene. He's said multiple times that he prefers life in nature. That's part of why he's spent the last few years building his estate in the Dominican Republic. His mornings often include meditation, long stretches of silence, and sessions in his home studio, not to rehearse lines, but to work on blueprints and sound frequency experiments. For him, peace is the most valuable currency he has. There's no huge wardrobe of designer brands or a flashy jewelry collection. He doesn't flex watches on Instagram or wear diamond chains in interviews. He might show up in linen pants and a worn-in shirt with his sleeves rolled up. And that's not a vibe. It's just who he is. Terrence lives well, but quietly. His cars are clean, his homes are secluded, and his lifestyle doesn't revolve around showing anyone what he's got. Even when he does travel, it's never loud. When he visits the U.S., it's usually for business, interviews, or short-term acting projects. He doesn't do extended city stays, no paparazzi trails, no nightclub appearances. He prefers destinations where no one knows who he is. Beach towns, small villages, remote eco-retreats. And almost always, he brings his family. Speaking of family, his life revolves heavily around his sons, especially the two youngest boys he shares with Miranda Park, Kiran and Hero. They're part of the reason he stepped back from doing more films after Empire. He wanted to be there. He's said in interviews that he missed a lot during the early years of his career, and he doesn't want to do that again. These days, his calendar isn't filled with premieres. It's filled with homeschool sessions, science experiments, and afternoons spent teaching his kids how to build things with their hands. He also spends hours a day on his science projects. He builds models, draws equations, and tests theories in the same way others might write screenplays or rehearse scripts. This is what gives him peace. He doesn't feel the need to chase his old fame because what he's doing now feels more real to him than any acting role ever could. What makes Terrence Howard's lifestyle so different is that it's not performative. There's no brand to protect, no audience to please. He's created a version of luxury that isn't about things. It's about space. Space to think, to breathe, to create, and to live life on his terms. But even with all that peace, there were definitely some moments when the money almost slipped through. The price of fame, setbacks, legal fights, and money problems. In particular, his marriage and eventual separation from Michelle Ghent turned into a very public, very expensive process. The two were married in 2010 and separated within a year. What followed was a long court battle over spousal support, with Ghent alleging abuse and Howard insisting he was coerced into the marriage and agreement. Though much of it played out behind closed doors, the financial damage was significant. And that wasn't his only complicated relationship. His first marriage to Laurie McComas also ended in divorce. And, although less public, it involved a sizable division of assets. Then came his third marriage to Miranda Pak, whom he actually married twice. While they remain together, reports suggest that property ownership between them has also gone through restructures, especially as Howard reorganized his finances after Empire. During the early 2010s, things started to look rough financially. Howard reportedly owed hundreds of thousands in back taxes and had mounting legal fees from ongoing spousal and child support disputes. Court documents from that time showed that he claimed to have limited monthly income, relying on his then-wife Miranda to cover many of his basic living expenses. He told a judge in 2013 that his earnings had plummeted and he couldn't afford the spousal support his ex was demanding. He was also sued by former business associates and talent reps during that period. One case involved his ex-manager suing for unpaid commissions. Another included a former talent agent claiming breach of contract. While most of these lawsuits were settled quietly, the pattern was clear. Money was moving in too many directions, and not all of it was being tracked or managed efficiently. That period forced Terrence to make some tough decisions. He reportedly downsized several real estate holdings, sold off a few investments, and restructured contracts where possible. When Empire took off in 2015, it gave him a second wind, not just creatively, but financially. His per-episode salary and producer bonuses gave him the leverage to clean up old debts, revisit settlements, and stabilize his accounts. And maybe that's the part that gets missed. When someone's life looks chaotic from the outside, it's easy to assume they're drowning. But Terrence always came back strong, especially when the right project came knocking. Redefining career moves, post-Empire reinvention. After Empire wrapped in 2020, Terrence Howard announced, very publicly, that he was done with acting. He told media outlets he'd spent enough time pretending and was ready to walk away from Hollywood entirely. For fans, it sounded like a definitive farewell, but if you know anything about Terrence, you know nothing is ever that simple. Just 2 years later, in 2022, he made a return in The Best Man, The Final Chapters, a limited series on Peacock that brought back the entire original cast. Howard reprised his role as Quentin Spivey, and the series was both a critical success and a nostalgic hit for longtime fans of the franchise. In between larger projects, Terrence also started taking on smaller indie films, stories that gave him more creative input and less pressure to perform for blockbuster audiences. These films weren't designed to dominate box offices. They were quieter, more personal roles where he could explore new angles and work with directors outside the studio system. The hidden side of Howard: music, science, and solitude. When he's not on set or managing one of his science-based ventures, you'll most likely find him in his personal sanctuary, a home-based lab and music studio where invention and self-expression collide. He plays both guitar and piano, often composing his own music from scratch. For Terrence, music isn't a side project. It's a part of how he processes life. He's talked about it in interviews, explaining how certain melodies come to him when he's sitting quietly, or how he'll spend hours layering harmonies just for the sake of getting the sound right in his own ears. This isn't music meant for an audience. He rarely releases anything. It's for him, for peace, for flow. He records tracks at home, sometimes with his kids nearby, and the vibe is nothing like a commercial studio. He's also been invited to give talks, not just at casual TED-style forums, but at academic gatherings and fringe science conferences alike. While traditional scientists may not always agree with his conclusions, no one denies that he comes prepared. He brings diagrams, demonstrations, and passion. His belief is that the universe isn't chaotic, it's harmonic, and if we understood that harmony better, We could build better machines, better homes, better everything. At home, Terrence keeps a lab and workshop filled with tools, 3D printers, magnets, and mechanical models. He often builds prototypes with his own hands, testing out balance, weight distribution, and magnetic flow. And through all of this, music, machines, math, what Howard values most is solitude. He's said in interviews that he doesn't need the fame anymore. He's done the movies, walked the carpets, held the awards. None of that fills him like a silent morning in his lab or a song that takes shape during a quiet night at home. He's a man who has lived through applause, chaos, criticism, and contracts, but who now finds his power in stillness. There's something grounded about the way he lives. No chasing headlines, no rushing to stay relevant. Just a constant process of building, whether it's a chord progression, a magnetic generator, or a new understanding of his place in the universe. And maybe that's what makes Terrence Howard so different. He doesn't just chase success, he builds his own universe. So what do you think? Has Terrence Howard quietly built one of the most fascinating legacies in entertainment, or is his greatest work still to come? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more real stories, rare insights, and legendary lives coming your way. Stay tuned!